was speaking about Buchman's contribution in the international arena.
Because you brought a human image for me of Frank Buchman. It has been this person that I really didn't, I have been studying, I have been learning about, but when you talk about him as somebody that you shared your life with and you're telling us your experiences, yes. I feel he's here. I can picture that, and I appreciate that very much.
Between discussion, there was time for song rehearsal.
How many times I've backed away, so often afraid, told others I'd be counted on and left them all betrayed. I said there's nothing I can do in a world that's turned so sour, where the hope for freedom is fading my ground. But it's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness, better to let its bright light show where you stand, for it's over there the dark night, like the coming of a new dawn, and hope will be born from that small flame in your hand. There are many echoes in the world, but few voices, many roads for us to take, but few make choices. Will we always wait till it's too late and things seem all but lost?
Then it was time to record the podcast and write our first report. Yunuk from Korea wrote, I found something unexpected in Keswick. Two things struck me quite strongly. Buchman was not on projects or programs, but on people, and not on mediation or reconciliation, but change which brings reconciliation. Now I've got to change the whole direction of my work in Korea. The days in Keswick had reinforced for us that the human factor and personal change is the key foundation for any transformation in society. Then it was time to leave for Oxford.
That's all right. This is the one we're not sure of.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Let's ask for that one is mine.
The shiny one? Hey! Okay.
So, if the first principle was dealing with your baggage, starting with yourself, the next was engaging others in this transforming experience. During the following years, particularly in North America and Asia, Buchman explored how to do this effectively. But it was in Oxford, when he returned to England during the 1920s, that his work with students took root, becoming known as the Oxford Group.
Arriving in Oxford, we were welcomed by our local hosts.
When did you suggest this idea, Jim? When did you have the idea?
Oh, about 3 years ago.
3 years ago. I mean, we only heard about it.
Local historian Dr. Mary Innes gave us a very helpful insight into what society was like when Buchman arrived in Oxford shortly after the First World War. Those of us from Eastern Europe were particularly struck by the similarities between those times and the confusion we have experienced in recent years after the breakup of Soviet Union. Her talk prompted everyone to reflect on the wider challenges we face in the world today.
The first person who decided to work fully with Buchman as a lifetime commitment was a student from Christchurch College, Loudon Hamilton. Ailsa, his daughter, spoke to the group, giving great insight to the initial contacts between her father and Buchman.
But he did eventually join the army, and he fought in the trenches in France, where he saw some terrible things and did some brave ones. And one night during the Battle of Passchendaele, where around him 16,000 young men were being killed every week, this comes to 95 every hour, day and night, he shook his fist at God up there and cursed him for allowing such things to happen. And that night his faith died. And Buchman was in his 40s then, very American, tallish, strongly made, bright, lively, neat, rimless glasses. So he came to that evening meeting of the beef and beer philosophers and sat quietly in the back of the room. And then after 4 papers had been read giving contradictory theories of how to put the world right, he was asked what he thought. Then he started to tell these young men about 2 others whom he'd made friends with in Cambridge and who had gone through some definite changes in their lives to do with honesty, with relationships and other lifestyle matters and their relationship to God. And these 2 were the exact copy of many there in the room. In the light of what would happen in the world, that's the interesting point, if people changed. So it wasn't an inward-looking or even a self-rescue thing. It was, what can we do for this world that we live in?
We gathered our thoughts before asking questions.
Well, one of the most interesting things is that your father went with that group to South Africa evidently without reference to Frank, or
yes,
at least
they told him they were doing it, but that was the end.
They told him, yes.
Yeah, they told
Were
him.
they financed? Did people pay for their stay in the colleges, or was the money just found?
So I can't help feeling that there must have been some things done that alienated people who should have been friends, that it wasn't, the opposition didn't only come from those who were ideologically opposed to...
So we would like, in the name of the traveling group and everybody here, to really thank you for this amazing opportunity to come closer to those times and grasp the spirit and the electricity that went around this place. And it really means a lot to us, makes things more real. Time to relax and think, and also to tour Oxford. We visited the rooms in Christchurch College, where Buchman first met Loudon Hamilton. We went to St. Mary's Church, the place where the university first started back in the 13th century. 91-year-old Robin Evans told us how, when he was at Oxford in the 1930s, he and 60 other students and faculty would meet daily at lunchtime in the library of St. Mary's to share what they were learning, to train each other, and to plan.
In Oxford, we had other gatherings and discussions which gave real insight to that stage of Buchman's journey. Many thousands of lives were touched, and scores of students decided to give all their time to work with Buchman. In the book Frank Buchman, A Life, it says,